The title of this video, partner, is Lamar Jackson just single-handedly shifted national conversation. We have reactions from both voters, media members, former players, current players alike. And that's what we're going to get into right now. How about first the former enemy, who is really a huge fan of everything that Lamar is about, and that is one Chad Ochocinco Johnson, who went on Nightcap, his show with Shannon Sharp, and he went off in favor of Lamar and what he's been watching.
Funny, and it's funny for me. Even I can separate the two. I can separate being a Bengal, playing for a franchise where obviously the enemy is the Ravens, but I can separate the two and understand the greatness that is Lamar Jackson. I can appreciate the quarterback playing, what he's been able to do since watching him in high school at Boynton High School, watching him at Louisville, and seeing how he's grown and matured into the quarterback he is today. When they've always said what he couldn't do. We don't think he can be a quarterback in this NFL. We think he should try running back.
Yeah, hell no.
Just all the stuff he's had to overcome, all the obstacles and the hurdles, and to see where he's come now. I can honestly say this, and even as a Bengal, as much as I bleed that goddamn black and orange, I really hope he win it, the whole thing this year. I really hope he wins the whole thing this year, Unc. Not just the MVP, but goddamn it, get you a chip just to get him off your back. So there's nothing else they can say, Unc. Just so there's nothing else going to say. And if you have any type of documentary, if you have any type of film that talks about the start to the finish, I want the lead up to it, how it starts, to be all the negative things everybody said.
Hey, and let me just say, I probably could have censored that sucker a little bit more for you, partner, but I tried to get the big ones in there. Moral of the story, Ocho is riding hard for not only Lamar's MVP candidacy, but ultimately getting after that coveted Lombardi.
You know that is some intense, real love that Ocho has for Lamar, because could you imagine a former Raven that was as big as Ochocinco is to Cincinnati, when your team, by the way, is not mathematically out of it? We'll discuss later how the Bengals can still get in. Like, they're fighting for their lives and want to get in. And if they do get in, you've got national shows saying, like, who would you most not like to see? Well, the Bengals have upset Mahomes before. The Bengals have upset Allen before. And so just getting in, the Bengals could very well have a chance. And so here you have a star, a beloved star from the Cincinnati Bengals, while they're fighting for their lives trying to get in, saying he wants Lamar to win it all. You know that love for Lamar runs deep. And I get it. We all feel it. You can feel a groundswell. It's not just from his teammates. Yes, it's Baltimore. Yes, it's Louisville. And yes, it's Florida. But everybody feels that way because it's like he has overcome so much, Lamar has, and people saying he can't be what he literally is today. And to his point, the only thing he has left is that Super Bowl. So that's crazy. I mean, I don't think that Ravens fans would like it if, say, I don't know, Ray Lewis was saying something like that right now for the Bengals. You know what I mean? It's pretty crazy.
But where it runs deepest, where it appears to run deepest, meaning the loyalty, is that those South Florida ties. And Ocho being from the Miami area, the South Florida roots, we see it time and time again, whether it's the Ravens that are attracted to this, or whether it's the players that are attracted to Baltimore because of the amount of South Florida connection that there is, that Eric DeCosta has crafted, or just the fact that they grew up, or in Chad's case, he's older than Lamar, but he was so aware of the Boynton Beach Lamar Jackson legend, right? And so that he has this certain level of respect down there that I don't think we'll ever truly understand, having not grown up there. And so I think Chad does a great job of representing what's become a sentiment league-wide. Anybody that hails from that community in the South Florida area, what Lamar Jackson was like before he became Lamar Jackson. And I think that it really speaks for itself. Sarah, this is, of course, another angle. Right now we get to MVP voters, former players. Of course, Ocho is a former player, but he's not an MVP voter. Richard Sherman, I believe, is, Sarah, isn't he?
I don't know. I don't think so.
Okay.
Because
I
at
thought he
least
was last year, though.
He was not. I know for a fact he wasn't last year because last year he was actually advocating for Allen because Richard Sherman is a stats guy. So he felt like Lamar didn't have the stats last year.
Okay.
And so if he had a vote, he would have given it to Allen, but we know that there was only one vote against Lamar, and it was Aaron Schatz.
Yes. Okay. Thank you.
So whether he got one this year, I don't know, but he did not have one last year.
Okay. But one of the many who have a platform, of course, as not only a current broadcaster, but a former standout player, and he tweeted this out on Christmas night. I will say what I have been saying. Lamar Jackson has the numbers this season and should win it easily, referring to MVP. I didn't understand the sentiment that the race was over, as if Buffalo was the number 1 seed.
Mm-hmm.
If he ends up with 45 plus touchdowns and under 5 picks, where he currently stands, he's at 43 total touchdowns, without an MVP, I'm not sure how that is justified. Some strong words, Sarah, from a guy who's got a big voice in the NFL.
That's what I'm saying. Like, he's pointing out the 45 plus and under 5 interceptions. Absolutely. And then you just add in what we already talked about, which is the rushing title and potentially a passer rating title. It just, how do you just overlook that? And he went on to go talk about this number 1 seed. And I think that he made a really good point to all those people that keep saying that, well, Josh Allen has a better record. We've already talked about strength of schedule and who each team has had to play. But he also said this, a follower said, well, Allen should have won MVP last season, but gave it to Lamar. Now better stats are now playing into the mix. So Richard replies, he says, yeah, the number 1 team in the NFL argument is something that helped Lamar last season.
Yep.
If Buffalo was the number 1 overall team, he would likely win the same way Lamar did, but he cannot make that case. And that's what I've been saying is like, well, now here we are. Both are going to win their divisions, or most likely, as long as the Ravens take care of business against the Browns next week, which is obviously not a given because the Browns upset the Ravens earlier. But assuming they take care of business, how do you really justify saying, oh, I got to give it to Allen when he's just the number 2 seed and Lamar's number 3? Like, to Richard's point, you're not number 1. That's Patrick Mahomes. So everybody that keeps making the argument, well, it's not about stats. You got to look at, record and value to the team. Well, you just made an argument for Patrick Mahomes, not Josh Allen. Because if we're not going to look at the stats, Patrick Mahomes doesn't have the stats, but he's able to finish game in and game out, and he's got the number 1 seed. So I feel like Bill should stop making that argument because it's actually for Patrick, not Josh.
Sherm wasn't the only one chiming in yesterday. Now, Mike Florio has a vote. That much we know. Last year, Mike unwisely stuck his neck out there prior to the Christmas game, as he likes to remind himself. And in an effort, while doing so, was referred to by Lamar himself as Mike Florist or Mike Flores, or however you want to interpret it, from that classic post-game video of him walking out after dominating the San Francisco 49ers at their place, at their house on Christmas night. A year later, in game, Mike Florio not only claims that when the Ravens are clicking, there's no better team in the league, but also went as far as to put a GIF out there and confirm that Lamar is the MVP, Sarah. Notable because he is, again, a voter.
Yes. Now, I happen to agree with him, but there is a part of me that wonders, are you trying to make up for what you did last Christmas? Are we trying to get back on Lamar and the Ravens' good side? Has he been denied a couple of interview requests, or like what's going on over there? So that's another one that's kind of changed his tune. I don't know that Dan Orlovsky has completely changed his mind, but we covered this last night.
Well, looky here. What do you have here, partner?
Yeah, well, he says, what the heck, Lamar, MVP was being the operative word, and it should have never been the word in the first place. Mr. Orlovsky, who I enjoy and think he has great commentary and analysis, and I will continue to watch him, and I think he's got, I think he's a great guy and a nice guy, but boy, he's got egg on his face, Bobby. He's got egg on his face because he was not backing down that it was over. And Lamar had to do what he did last night to finally get him to at least consider that it's not over.
Right. Yeah, no, it cannot be declared over after 15 weeks, and it certainly cannot be declared over by a voter, and that is Dan Orlovsky. Chris Sims, former NFL QB and Mike Florio's co-host. Again, not sure of his voter status. I believe he has voted in the past as Chris Sims. Not sure where that currently stands, but he tweeted out this morning, and wrote, Lamar was MVP last year, and this year is almost head and shoulders above that. It should be a dead heat with Lamar and Josh Allen for MVP, and that's kind of what the odds, Sarah, are indicating as well.
We may need to consider the reality that it could be a co-MVP this year.
Yeah.
I don't know, because it just seems to be going back and forth here.
Right.
I mean, I would like the whole thing, but I think that we may need to consider that could happen with how tight it is right now.
Right. While we're highlighting here, most of which is national conversation that's shifting in Lamar's favor, there is still a contingent like Chris that's pumping the brakes and saying, hey, this is really, really, really close.
Right.
And we're acknowledging of that, of course. Des Bryant and Odell Beckham Jr. don't have votes, but they're doing their part, and they were last night. On X, OBJ tweeted out, as we covered in our post-game show, words don't do justice for seeing what Lamar does in person. And Dez, of course, had a cup of coffee with the Ravens toward the latter half of his career. And he quote tweeted Odell and said, oh, I try to tell people all the time, 8 different.
Indeed.
What about the current teammates? They went to bat as well. Isaiah Likely reposting some graphics that we had up on the screen earlier, which puts Lamar up against his peers and the candidates for NFL MVP. And Isaiah, who of course was the beneficiary of an incredible extension of a play by Lamar Jackson before he found 80 streaking across the end zone in improv form, of course, as always with his tight ends. Isaiah was like, he looked at the numbers. He's probably feeling himself post-game, and he says, are we still debating with a bunch of facepalm emojis, shaking my head emojis? You know Isaiah's riding with Lamar. I saw Pat Ricard tweeting that out as well. So, again, we have current teammates, past and present players, current media members, some of which are voters, Sarah. There is a shift. There's no question there's been a shift. It's just a matter of how much will that shift be after Josh plays against the Jets, and then what will take place in that regular season finale.
In the week 18. Now, Bobby, I'm cool with teammates having their QBs back. And I'm definitely cool with a simple story on Instagram. We mentioned this last night. Let me share my screen here. How about Josh Allen's offensive line and the gift that they gave him? He's running over to grab it. It's in a box. He's got it on. MVP 17. Look at that. They went all out. They went all out.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, they did.
Bro, that video has already gone viral. But if he were to not win it again, if he were not to win it, that video is going to live in infamy. In infamy. And that's fine. They can be like, well, he's still the MVP of our team. And he is. But that's crazy they went that far. They were really listening to the Dan Orlovskys of the world and were like, let's put the money down and get him this necklace.
For sure. There is a very real scenario that while the MVP conversation will be long decided by this point, there is a very legitimate scenario based on where things stand right now that the Ravens and Bills will meet up in the divisional round in Western New York. And that's going to be a heck of a matchup, and we've seen it before, partner. We've seen it before in the playoffs between Lamar and Josh, and it did not go in Lamar's favor. He was concussed. He left the game. It was cold, as it tends to be in January in Western New York. I can say that as an upstate boy. But there's a very legitimate scenario that could play out, that we see the two front-runner candidates, one of whom will have won the award by then, or maybe, to your point, it'll be a co-MVP. That could take place in January.